All the way from Paris. We'll be today talking about becoming an actress, the difficulties, the challenges, the opportunities, what kind of mindset and what kind of training is important for this kind of business. Alba, could you please introduce yourself and what do you do for business?
Of course. So hello, my name is Alba O'Neill. I'm a French-American actress. I reside in France in the Southwest. And yeah, I'm an actor. I used to practice at more an amateur level, and I've been acting professionally since January 2020.
Could you please explain or describe the place where you reside, why you chose this place exactly in France?
Well, I'm very familiar with the area because this is where I was born. It's where I went to middle school and high school. And I think it's just a bit more secure safety-wise. You're in closer proximity to the countryside as well. And you get a lot more sun than in the north, and it's cheaper. So the Southwest is the place to go.
Like how far is it to go to the Eiffel Tower?
From here? Oh
Yeah.
God, I think you would have to drive at least 7 hours.
Oh yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. That is that is perfect. And how would you describe the acting scene in France? Is it easy to be an actor?
I would say a few different elements come into play. The first thing that I've discovered, and this is where I'm happy to speak English, is that there are not a lot of resources available for actors in French in terms of acting management. So how to manage your career, what image you should be projecting, what your headshots should look like. And these resources are a lot more or much more available in the English language. So I think it's difficult to be an actor, first and foremost, because actors just don't know where to start and they just kind of get lost in what types they're supposed to be auditioning for. And I think that's part of the reason why it's hard to start a career. The other reason, to be honest, it's probably just like in every other country. You don't really know what casting directors are looking for. You don't know exactly if you fit the persona that they're hoping to hire. So I think it makes it a bit difficult to kind of situate yourself in the scene when you're starting out.
So in this kind of context, like how much training and classes do you need?
I think it depends on the person. You know, sometimes you hear about actors like Jennifer Lawrence who never took an acting class before getting booked for a film. I don't think you should ever use those kind of people as references. I certainly think she's a wonderful actress and she should be looked up to. But I think it's very presumptuous to just come into the business and be like, oh, well, I'm really beautiful and I'm kind of talented, so I can probably get away with not taking any classes. Because I think you're just putting more chances on your side if you're actually training with a coach who's going to be the third eye and giving you objective feedback on what it is you're doing. And I think that's, if you look at some of the best actors in Hollywood, I mean, Charlize Theron has an Academy Award and she still trains with a coach. So I definitely think that training should be mandatory.
Okay, and let me say, like, how difficult is it to get a main role in the French scene?
I think it depends on, well, of course, there's always like an element that's a little bit inaccessible to the actor because you don't know exactly what they have in mind. I know that I've been up for several lead recurring roles in TV shows here. I did get one and it's going to be shooting in November. But the rest of the time, I always get wonderful feedback like, that was so good, I'm really impressed. And then they just send you an email saying, see you next time, maybe. So I'd say it's quite complicated, but I mean, a lot of things come into the decision making. And I think that France is also very much axed on your physique and not just maybe on your personality. I feel like Americans are a lot more axed on kind of the energy you give out and your personality, and they really get down more to your acting technique. I think that the French more oftentimes, and I'm just generalizing, but they like the kind of Jane Birkin, Brigitte Bardot kind of physique that's kind of timeless. And if you don't really meet those kind of model-esque criteria, it's a bit more difficult to book a role.
Okay, so my question here, like as an actress, and now you are speaking English, and you can land roles in the USA and in England as well as related to your language. So, how can popularity and fame affect your business opportunities?
Right. Well, first of all, I think it's very important for any actor to learn to speak English, because you're going to be opening so many more opportunities yourself to so many more opportunities. I do think that we live in a day and age where producers don't want to take huge risks for some projects, not for all, but they don't want to take huge risks with who they're hiring. And obviously, if you're faced with two actors who physically fit the role and who are equally as talented, but one has 750 Instagram followers, me, and the other has 25,000 followers, I think they're a lot more prone to opt for someone who has a larger following, because it's almost a guarantee to them that a minimum of 25,000 people just brought in by that sole actor are going to see the movie. So unfortunately, to a certain extent, I think that popularity on social media plays a pretty big role in what jobs you book.
Okay, my question here, like if you gain more, let's say, listening viewership from the actors and actresses in on the French scene, what would be your recommendations? What would you like to tell them?
The first thing is get your butt into class. um, the second thing is mainly when you're in France, you don't have huge databases like Backstage or Actors Access that you would have in the UK, or Spotlight that you would have in the UK or in the US. So we basically have just like a couple newsletters, maybe one website that kind of assembles a few projects. But it's not, the feed isn't very good. So it's difficult finding projects on those platforms. Basically, where I get most of my work is on Facebook groups. And when you go on those Facebook groups, it makes me want to rip my hair out of my head, because there are specific rules when when you enter into private groups. One of those rules is this group is solely destined to publishing auditions for actors. And you will see, my God, you will see like 30 publications in one day. Hi, I'm an actor, hire me. Hi, here's a selfie of me with 50 filters. Give me a job. And that's not how it works. If it were just as easy to publish a picture of yourself on a group, and for a director or a casting director to say, oh my God, what a wonderful Snapchat filter, let me hire this person, everyone would be doing it. And that's not how it works. You need to be professional. You have to have a professional CV. You have to have great headshots by a professional photographer. You need to list as many projects as possible. You need to be on IMDb. You need to be on any platform that will that will basically make you more believable as an actor. And you just need to work, and I think there's like an issue with ego and self-worth in France, a little bit more than in other countries. And we just kind of have this impression that, oh, well, if I'm good, why won't you hire me? But that's not how the business works. So I think actors in France need to stop trying to put themselves forward and start focusing on their actual craft and how they can make themselves better. And then work will just come to you.
Okay, my understanding here and my feeling is you are speaking from a more a trainer's point of view than an actor's point of view.
Oh, really?
Okay, so as a trainer, what would you exactly would like to change in the mentality of these actors and actresses?
Well, I might sound like a trainer, but which I'm not. But well, I think I'm saying this as an actress as well, because it's very frustrating when you start working with these kinds of people, because they're just so full of themselves and they think that everything is owed to them. And it's so complex working with someone who can't take constructive criticism. And I'm not saying you should just accept any kind of criticism, because I get people every day telling me, oh, you're ugly or you can't act, which I know is just bollocks. But I think that it's just really important to learn to work in a group and to be able to communicate with people and to not be so passive aggressive. So I think maybe just work more on your people skills because that comes into play a lot when you're an actor. You know, you're working with so many people on set, and if you make it all about yourself and not so much about the project, then you're kind of dragging everyone down, you know?
So my question is like, how far or how close is the French cinema from the worldwide cinema? Or let's say precisely the American cinema?
Um, well, if you mean in terms of style,
I mean, in terms of quality, in terms of the mentality, in terms of thinking, in terms of, let's say, how the industry goes, the mechanics.
right. Um, well, in terms of quality, it's a bit subjective. As far as I'm concerned, I'm always a lot more oriented towards American cinema. Just because in my personal opinion, cinema is kind of supposed to make you dream, you know, it's supposed to transport you into this other universe. Whether the story is more or less believable or not is secondary to me. But French cinema is a lot more axed on what you go through, you know, the human emotions. And some movies are great. I mean, if someone wants to check out the movie Police by Maïwen, it's an excellent movie. It's really, really good. And I think it will give you like an overview of what French cinema looks like. In terms of the actual mechanics, I've never gotten past the audition stage for American projects. So I've never actually been on an American set. So I wouldn't necessarily be able to say. But what I can tell you is that if you're looking at the whole mechanics of getting into a project in the US, for example, if you're signed on to Actors Access, you know, every time you upload a headshot, you're supposed to pay $10. I think that the annual subscription to Actors Access is like $60, $70. I might be mistaken. In France, there's this you're not supposed to pay to work kind of mentality, which I agree with to a certain extent, but a lot of actors have great opportunities here that they just don't take because, oh, I don't want to drive for 2 hours. Oh, but I don't want to shave my beard because I have my birthday party next week, so I can't be in this advertisement. Excuse me. So I just think there's a lot more, I think there's a lot more involvement on the American side. People are willing to sacrifice maybe a bit more of their comfort. Whereas in France, I mean, I get auditions that never reimburse any of my travel fees. I mean, I've never had a casting director offer to pay for how many hours I spent in the car or in the train. And I shouldn't expect anything because they need to make money as well, you know? But a lot of actors will just turn down opportunities because, well, why should I have to drive for 6 hours? Well, because it's part of your job. So, but that comes down to a lot of the core mentality of the US. You know, the US is like very work and ethic oriented, and France a little bit less. But yeah.
Okay, my next question is more challenging. Like, is the French cinema reaching the, let's say, the number or the population of people, the number of people it should reach, or it should aim for more?
That's a good question. I think that, well, one of the advantages I will say with the French mentality is that it's kind of very axed on what you want to put out, making sure that it's in tune with the initial vision that you had. And if it is, then you just put it out. And if people like it, then great. And if people don't like it, well, then too bad for them. So I think that's what you find in a lot of French projects is that they know that they're aiming for a certain type of population. They know that a lot of people are going to hate what they do. And they know that a lot of people are going to love what they do. I think it's kind of what you saw with Blue is the Warmest Color. I don't know if you saw that movie. But it's a very particular movie. It's there are a lot of scenes that are more than suggestive. So they knew that there was like a big part of the population that wasn't going to like it. But I think that they had a vision in mind. They had a story that they wanted to tell, and they weren't really aiming for numbers. That's a big difference, I think. They don't aim for numbers. They just they aim maybe a bit more for quality, I would
Okay.
say.
Yeah, that is a good answer. So my next question is, if you become a producer or a director, would you pay for the actors who come for auditions?
That's a very good question. Quite sincerely, if it's a huge project that can allow itself to hand out a few more extra bucks, of course. If there's a budget for that, I see no reason to not give people the extra hand for them to be able to make it to the audition. But I also think that it shows how invested someone is when you know they live 4 hours away and they still make the effort to drive over there and get there 30 minutes early. And I think it says a lot about the actor. And I think that's also a good, I think it's a good thing to showcase to a casting director. Um, Not necessarily because they're going to give you the role because you showed you were invested, but because they're going to remember you. Oh, yeah, that was that guy who lived in the middle of nowhere and who came by scooter and who then had to walk for 45 minutes. And oh, yeah, I remember him. He was cool.
Okay, now you mentioned two sides of the French cinema, which is the quality side, and then with this kind of let's say mentality or depending on the picture of the
Mhm.
actor. Which is more important from your point of view if you are the director, the quality or let's say the form or the shape of the actors?
I Well, I think to a certain extent it kind of goes hand in hand. I would say that you would have to act. I would say you would have to put quality before anything else. But the thing is, your story also has to be believable. And there's a whole debate in France about racism and some races being more on the forefront of French cinema than others. And I think it's excellent to have those debates. But to speak about like a French project that's on Netflix, Arsène Lupin, with Omar Sy as the lead actor. Well, you're looking for a lead actor who's going to come from an African country, a Western African country, so Senegal. If you get a blonde guy with blue eyes, it's not going to be believable. You need someone who's got the kind of charisma, the kind of physique, also that's going to go with the character he brings forward. So, although I think that the acting, the person's acting, of course, has to be the most important element because that's what gives off their energy and their vibe and showcases their talent. You also need to pick someone who's going to be a minimum believable in the role that you're trying to cast.
Okay, my next question here is in which direction, if you have the decision to make, would you take or would you direct the French cinematic scene? Where would you like to go?
Oh, well, the end goal for me personally would be the American scene. Um, well, actually, we're saving up to be able to move to the US hopefully this year. But the yeah, I think when I started writing, I just started writing a few months ago. But the kind of projects that I have in mind, I don't really think would come to fruition in France because I kind of enjoy the whole CGI aspect of movies. I like big action movies, big box office productions, and I don't necessarily see who I could aim for in France to bring that project to fruition. Whereas I have 20 names in the US that I could think of.
Okay, so my next question here, okay, from your experience, how challenging or how, let's say, rewarding your journey has been so far with acting?
Very challenging. um, it's just very challenging because the frustration of not booking is constant. But I think that's for every actor who's starting out, unless you're very, very lucky. I've only been doing this for 1 year professionally. I would say it's extremely rewarding in the people that I've met. And circling back to what we were saying about acting classes are so important because that's also where you meet actors, sometimes directors or casting directors come to classes to see the different students there. And for example, I did a class last summer. It was an intensive 2 week class with a casting director. And she kind of saw what I did. And although I haven't booked anything with her yet, she casts for multiple TV shows in France. And whenever she has a role that can fit me, she calls me in. So that's where it's really rewarding because I haven't made a lot of money. But then again, people who are in the business think that I'm good enough to keep bringing me back. And I think that's what you should aim for. You should aim for creating a fan base of actors and directors and casting directors who want to work with you. Don't be so focused on the money aspect, I think.
That is great to know. What else would you like to add today, Alba?
I think that you need to have enough confidence in yourself to be able to fight through the desire to quit, because sometimes it's very daunting to be like, well, I'm not making any money. I have to work 3 jobs on the side. It's getting to be a lot. I should probably quit. But I also think that you need to be able to ask yourself the right questions. Am I doing what I need to be doing? Did I update my resume today? Do I need new headshots? Is there another acting class I can be joining? Who haven't I contacted in a while that I can send out an email to by saying, hey, this is me. Here's my updated resume. I've been in this project, this project, this project. I think that every day that passes, you need to find one little thing that you can do to improve your marketability. And it comprises a lot of things, but I think you should focus on bettering yourself at your art and bettering your package as an actor.
It's been more than awesome talking to you, Alba, and like getting this glimpse from France. Thank you so much for that indeed.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.